Hello, this is Dr. Stephen Cangiano. I am the president and co-founder of RDT.Media and Events with its online companions, relationship-development.com and humanity-upgrade.com, which has MD site, HU Fit site. And today it's a real pleasure because I consider Laura Saltman not only a mentor, but a friend. And Laura and I have worked together over the last 2 years, and I don't want to hide the fact that I'm very familiar with her work. We publish her work on our site, and I am a fan of hers. However, what I want to do today is I want to kind of play devil's advocate, because Laura has a lot of very innovative, maybe even controversial ideas about life and happiness. And Laura has a fascinating background. I'm going to give you a potted version, and then I'm going to have her explain some of the challenges and her story, because it's really compelling and fascinating. So Laura was in the entertainment industry. She was at the top of the game. She was interviewing people like Tom Cruise, and she worked with Ryan Seacrest. She's such a show-off. And then a few life challenges happened to her, and it actually changed the direction and path of her life, put her on a completely new trajectory. And that trajectory led her to writing 3 books and really becoming really somebody who's very well respected in the wisdom industry. And Laura, did I miss anything in that introduction? And maybe you can give us a little bit of your story.
Absolutely not. But I love how you say that Laura believes all these things and Laura has all these ideas, because at the end of the day, it's not Laura who believes all these things. It's not Laura, the personality, who wrote these books. It's Laura, the co-creator, who has been working for the last 5 years as a co-creator with our spiritual counterparts on the other side, I would say, to write these books. So the information isn't even coming, it's coming through me, and it's coming from me, but it's not coming just from Laura. So Laura implies that I am just one part of the entity of all 3 of things, which is mind, body, soul, which I know we're going to get into later. So just, I think the short version of a very long story of my life is, you said it, I was working in Hollywood, having an amazing time, red carpets, Golden Globes, Oscars, fabulous gowns, diamonds, you know, all that great stuff that Hollywood is. But then I went through some tragedies in my life. My brother died of cancer. My dad took his own life. I suffered several miscarriages and some adoption failures. I got divorced, and I was just in a really bad place, and I needed a way to get myself out of that bad place, because I had a son at the time who was just a little baby, and he was the light of my life, and he's the reason I am in this world to be, because I love him so much. And so I had to figure it out. And so that's what I did. I opened up this intuitive channel that we all have access to and can tap into. I just have been on such a intimate journey with it that I was able to open it up on a very deep, deep level.
You know, so when again, I get it. When I say devil's advocate, what I mean is this: when you say that it's not just you, it's not just Laura Saltman, and when people look at you, they say, "Oh, wow, Hollywood," you know, how do you explain to somebody that it's not just Laura? What is coming through you? And if you could, just to give people some real hard facts on what you feel like that process is.
Yeah, well, it's a long process, first of all. It's a long process of discovery, and it's different for every single person on this planet. So my journey to it may be completely different than yours, and may be completely different than everybody else's. And some people may never find it. They may never find that journey, and that's all good. It's all fine. My journey started when I was in my 20s. I started sensing energy and what I thought were spirits. Like, I remember being in my grandparents' house after my Nana had passed on, and feeling like she was there with me, and I couldn't understand why. And so I was fascinated by mediumship. And I remember my parents used to always say to me, when you're dead, nothing happens. You just go in the ground, that's it. And I was like, no, there's no way. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no way. Something happens after we pass on. And so I just kept discovering it. And there's just little pieces in your story that are the proof that you need to go seeking further and to go looking. And a lot of those things happened to me. One of the times in my house, I was hearing voices in the house. And this is a story, I think, in my book. And there was, it turned out that a woman who died just on the day I was hearing voices, a woman had died in a nursing home, and she turned out to be the former owner of the home. And her husband had died in my driveway of my home. And I believe that they met on that day to say goodbye to each other. And then I never heard those voices ever again. My grandmother was in a coma, and I sat with her for 2 days, and I spoke to her, and I talked to her for 2 straight days, told her my whole life story, everything that was going on. I was in the middle of a breakup with a boyfriend. I wasn't sure if we were going to break up or not. She comes out of her coma and she squeezes my hand. The very first thing, swear to God, the first thing she said to me is, "You need to break up with your boyfriend." She heard every word that I said while she was in that coma. She heard my story. So everyone always called me the coma whisperer, that I could, wake people up in that way. And then from there, it's just been signs and messages and serendipities and synchronicities. And then of course, being able to write 4 books, word for word, without changing one word, almost as if a translation, as if I was sitting in a deposition in court, and I was just listening to the people talk, and then I'm typing. That's exactly how my books were written. They were written as a direct translation. So it's pretty hard to shake me out of the knowledge that there's something beyond these bodies and this physical life. You can't convince me otherwise. I know too much. I've spoken to people on the other side as a medium and a channel, and gotten information about somebody that I never ever could have known. I've been able to speak to what we call angels and guides repeatedly. So it really is difficult to get me out of what I know on the inside.
Yeah, so that's interesting because, quite honestly, I know you as an extremely honest, high integrity person, and not for an instant knowing you, would I doubt that. However, most people out there are saying, really?
Yeah.
Tell me, like, for instance, your books. And I read your first book. It's really phenomenal. A lot of insight and wisdom. And you get the impression that it came from a very smart person.
Yeah.
Or, somebody who's enlightened. But it's hard to make the leap to, hey, there's a divine source that's channeling this through me. Get into detail on that process. And I recommend that everybody read your books. The 4th book I want to talk about, because that I'm not yet familiar with. But yeah, so tell me that process.
Well, I remember it started when I was reading different spiritual books by Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson, A Course in Miracles, Eckhart Tolle, all the materials that exist, Deepak Chopra, in the world I was consuming. And the one that stuck out to me the most was Conversations with God with Neil Donald Walsh. And I just remember I read all 3 books, and then I listened to them. So, I didn't just read them and then go, okay, I actually listened to it as well. Like, I remember Ed Asner was the voice in the audio version, and I loved it. Oh, I loved it. I thought he was geniusly perfect for that. And by the way, my intention is to get my books into a audio format with the voice of God as a transgender, like, celebrity. So putting that out there. But anyway, so I just knew that listening to that, he just kept saying the same thing over and over again. Anybody can talk to God. Anybody can do this. And I was like, really? Okay. And I would say maybe after I finished those books, I started to write in journals, and I was journaling. And whenever there was a problem in my life, whether it was, with the miscarriages, divorce, whatever was going on, I would write in my journals and just start writing and asking questions and getting the information coming back to me. And from there, I started realizing that I was hearing this voice, like whatever that voice was. And I don't know how to describe it other than it's like a voiceless voice. Like, it's not my voice, it's just a voice. And so I started thinking, I wonder if I can be doing this. So I started to go back through all those journals, and I realized that I had all these like insanely profound information. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible what I've been writing. And so I ended up moving here. I live in Florida now, and I ended up moving here, and my life was still a total disaster. And it's one of the reasons I moved to Florida and got out of Hollywood. I just needed a break. And just sitting down and saying, oh, I really feel like I can do this. So I started writing. And I started asking questions the same way that Neil would ask his questions. And sure enough, I would ask a question and the answer would come instantaneously. Ask a question, answer would come. And I just kept, he wrote his book. I have to type. I have the worst chicken scratch handwriting on the planet. So I was typing into my computer. And I would say after about 60 pages of this back and forth Q&A, I realized that I was writing something incredibly profound, that, as I said, it was coming as a dictation. It wasn't like Laura was answering. I was definitely asking the questions. I was in a despaired, place. But I just started realizing I have something. And so it just became very clear to me through my own intuition that this was going to be a book. And so 6 weeks, I wrote my very first book. It's 365 pages, I think. I wrote it in 6 weeks. And it was just back and forth and back and forth. And I think I read it 20 times. And every time I read it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I am not capable as a human, as Laura, of writing this book. But even as I wrote the book, Stephen, I still was like, this is BS. I don't believe any of this. This is ridiculous. I still didn't believe it. So then I kept writing. So then I wrote a second book. I think the second book took me 2 months to write. Because I couldn't stop. Once you go down this rabbit hole, you're like, oh my God, I gotta know. And what was happening is I was going back into the pages of the book, and I don't remember writing it. It became like, almost like I was in a trance or something, and I hadn't written the books. I didn't remember half of the stuff I wrote. And I would read it 10, 20 times, and I still wouldn't remember that I wrote some of it. So then I put that book out in the world. And then the same thing with the third one. I think the third one took me about 3 to 4, maybe longer, maybe about 5 months to write. And this one was like more information. It just, the more that I wrote, the deeper knowledge and wisdom that was being shared. And so then I put that one out into the world. But I still had questions. I still wasn't at a level of belief. I still was like everybody else, where I was kind of like, all right, I get it, but this seems like BS, and my life isn't working properly, and everything's falling apart anyway. Even though you're telling me this is how I can live my life, guess what? It's not working. So then I just kept writing. So now I've written this 4th book, and I would definitely say that it was the 4th book that I still go back in, because I'm not completely finished with editing it, but I still go back and I read it as if I am just somebody that picked it up in the library and I don't remember writing half of it. And that was really the book that really opened me up, because it wasn't written as a Q&A. There is some Q&A where Laura, me, is very frustrated and annoyed by some certain things that are going on in our world right now, asking questions, but the information that came through was strictly that translation of like, I'm just typing, I'm listening, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I've got, I would say 70% of that book is a direct translation. And then 30% of it is my egotistical, boo-hoo-hoo, woe is me, my life sucks, the world is a mess. What can we do about it?
Right. Interesting. So, again, similar journey. Somebody gave me the first Conversations with God book. I looked at the first 2 pages, threw it down, didn't even look at it because it was so contrary. And, then you start to think like, the Bible, those traditional religions had these moments of inspiration and God talking through people.
Yeah.
Why can't it happen today? If so many billions of people believe in that, why can't it happen today? Why isn't it more likely to happen today? Because it seems like we have much greater challenges. So I finally picked the book up, and the same thing as you. I read every single one of those books, underlined them, outlined them, and then listened to Ed Asner. And it really helped me transform my life. Now, I never went down the road that you went down. And I actually, to be candid, got away from it a little bit because I got more into the science and how we do that. Okay.
All part of your journey, though. My journey to it is different than your journey to it. What you are meant to be sharing in the world is different than what I'm meant to be sharing in the world. We're all here to serve in some way. So your soul will lead you into exactly what you need to find, when you need to find it, where you need to go with it. So it's all part of the process.
Interesting. And that's on one level why we're connected, and on one level why we have interesting conversations, you and I directly. All right, so let's go down. Now, I consider you a meditation expert, and I've discussed this, and I think the prescription of meditation is so overprescribed, irresponsibly prescribed. When somebody's in a crisis, the last thing they should be told independently without any guidance is to meditate. can you comment on that? And then how do you help? What do you recommend somebody who's really struggling with life? Maybe they got a diagnosis, maybe a family member has some of the things you've dealt with. How do you help people with that? And tell them a little bit about what you do.
Well, first of all, I will say that I somewhat disagree with that people shouldn't be told to meditate. I think everybody should figure out a way to meditate. That's works for who you are, because there are, I think, 1,700 plus forms of meditation in the world, and one form of it will work for you. That could be you going to play tennis, and just as you're playing with your partner, there's no music, there's no talking, it's just watching that ball go back and forth, and just being in that space of being, doing something you enjoy is a form of meditation. So I think
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me
It's
give you a
okay.
little context. So this comes from, I used to work in a wellness clinic that also had a alternative medical cancer treatment center. And what a lot of the doctors would do is say, I want you to go home and meditate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What?
But that's not going to work for somebody because they don't understand what it is. So that's where the issue comes in. Again, it goes back to, you have to meditate in a way that's going to work for you. And that isn't necessarily, because I think that what you're speaking on is everybody thinks this, like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to sit here with my eyes closed and I'm going to om or whatever I'm going to do. And they think that that has to be meditation. And that's just not the truth. You don't have to do that meditation. Meditation is talking to God, essentially, right? When you close your eyes, when you do something that is meaningful to you, when you get rid of the noise of your life, you are in a state of meditation. So that's where it's important for people to figure out a way to meditate that works for them, whatever it may be. If you're a sailor, go get in your boat and sail on the ocean and let the waves, bring you into a state of peace. Anything that's going to bring you into a state of unawareness, which is not being aware of the human life that you're in and all the stress and the struggles. And so the reason I actually became a meditation instructor, a certified meditation instructor, is because I couldn't meditate. I could not do it. And I was trying to do it in that way that was like, close your eyes and this. It just wasn't working for me. So I wanted to figure out a way to do meditation that worked for me. And I wanted to learn what the benefits were of it from that scientific, background that you have. And so I took, a certification course in order to do that, which took me, I don't remember how long, maybe a couple of years, but and I was able to learn how it benefits your body, brings your stress level down, your cortisol level, takes you out of fight or flight, all those different things. And then I figured out through my certification what spoke to me as a meditation teacher, and that is guided meditation. So I love guided meditation. I would say to you, instead of giving people the prescription to go meditate, I would give them the prescription to go find a guided meditation teacher who can help bring you into that state of peace, because it's much easier. And all my students that I've done guided meditation with, they all say the same thing. The way you do it, I totally get it. I can listen. I can see what you tell me to see. And it really works for them. So I love guided meditation. I would say for people to do that. But find a quiet space, close your eyes for 5 minutes. Even if you have your mind, your thoughts are coming in. Even if you do it now, like close your eyes. No, we're on video. We shouldn't be closing our eyes. But if you close your eyes instantaneously, the minute that you close your eyes and you start to focus on your breath, you automatically start to de-stress. And the reason being is because you're shutting out the noise of the world. You're shutting out the humanness. You're shutting out what you believe and see with these physical eyes, and starting to bring in what we call in, the new age, as people would call it, that third eye, your third eye chakra, the window to the soul.
Yeah, beautiful. So, and I want to emphasize what you just said, because when somebody's in a crisis and they tell somebody, go meditate, and don't give them any instruction or guidance, it can actually make them worse. It can
stress you out for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to emphasize the scientific aspect of this, so I was scolded because I did that. I was scolded by a meditation teacher who said, Steve, You cannot tell a cancer, somebody just got a cancer diagnosis, you don't tell them to go home and meditate. You just don't do it. It's irresponsible. He really scolded me. And I said,
Yeah.
oh, maybe you're right. And then I kind of got turned off to it. And now as I look at the research, and the research is a little wonky, it's not, you know, it's not super clear. But now these things they say, when you talked about fight or flight, sympathetic versus parasympathetic, what most wellness practitioners, functional medicine practitioners are looking at heart rate variability. And I would love to take somebody in your meditation and see what their heart rate variability goes from before and after. Because then we can make it objective and we can give all the snot-nosed deniers, excuse me, I'm joking, all the deniers that, hey, oh, this works. But it's like any prescription, excuse that might not be the right term, prescription, but any prescription, it has to be given through a certified pharmacist like you in the context of meditation. So that's really important. All right.
But I
Anything?
would tell you this, I would never tell someone as a prescription and just say, go meditate, that'll fix it. Because that's not true. Because that's not going into what I was saying about mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul. You have got to combine that trifecta into one. So if you want to fix your health ailments, your stress ailments, you've got to use all three. Meditation is not going to fix it on its own. Taking a pill might fix it on its own for a little while, but it comes back to what you believe. So you have to combine all three into one. You know, we can get into lots of different things, but when I work with clients one-on-one, we work with modalities where we're getting into some of the deeper hidden subconscious beliefs that they hold, some of things from other lifetimes, past lives, as we call them here on earth, that are affecting them, which can affect you as you begin to enlighten and awaken. So it has to be like, if I could go lobby for doctors to work with the mind, body, soul, rather than just the mind or the body, like to combine everything, that's what I would tell people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get to the conscious beliefs, but before you mentioned something that I really liked when you interviewed me, and that was the trifecta. And if you have a piece missing, it's going to be difficult to make things work. So talk about how you define the trifecta.
So it's mind, body, soul, mind, body, spirit. So one of the things of my book, which I know what people would find shocking, and even I find shocking as well, is that the brain and the mind are completely separate from one another. They're not the same thing, right? So we think with a brain. Our brain is a physical part of ourself. It's physically in here, and it does all these great things that we need to tell our body where to go and what to do and how to function. Our mind is our consciousness. Our mind is the consciousness that comes from spirit, that comes from the soul. So we have a choice on earth of free will, which is we get to choose between thoughts of loving kindness or our ego thoughts, subconscious thoughts, which is the fears that we have, doubt, resentments, bitterness, jealousy, anger. I mean, it goes on quite endlessly what all of our subsets of fear are. So when we are using our mind, we get to choose, but people think that they're just using their brain. So the part of the mind of that trifecta is recognizing and understanding that you have to make sure that you're using your mind and not just your brain. Then when it comes to your body, so these are the bodies that we've chosen to be in right now, and everything affects everything else. So I don't know if you ever read A Course in Miracles, but it says in A Course in Miracles that the body is a learning device for the mind, and that is its only function on earth. That too is what it says in my books, that the use of the mind and what you think is creating what's happening in your body. So the minute that you feel stress, the minute that something hurts, there's an ailment, you stub your toe, whatever it is that happens in your body, something is happening in your free will choices that is causing that. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen right there, but we think the same repetitive thoughts every single day of our life, and then those start to affect us. So it's listening to your body when it's telling you. Like, I fell down the stairs and broke my wrist, and we don't have to talk about, but I know why. Like, I know now why, because I used the trifecta to figure out why. But that was caused by my unconscious fears. And then, of course, the spirit and the soul part of it is recognizing, and this is the piece that's very hard for people, because you cannot awaken those who not wish to be awoken, but It's recognizing that you are a soul being, that you have a spirit, and that a portion of you lives within you that is your soul, that it's always speaking to you. Your soul is always speaking to you. Your spirit is always trying to guide you. And that's where people get hung up, because the beliefs, the conscious beliefs that we hold on to are so tied to our physical eyes. We believe everything that these little eyes show us. But when you close your physical eyes and open this third eye, and that's why I love guided meditation, it's magical what you can see on the other side, the souls that you can connect with, the information that you can get. And that's where it came in, where I started to believe more and more, because I was telling people things about themselves that they already knew, but they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, oh, I can see it. I see it. And I don't use physical eyes to see, I use my third eye. So when you combine all three, when you're here on earth, to live that trifecta is the best possible version of yourself.
Beautiful. Interesting. So, and I agree. I do want to challenge a couple of things. Not that I don't agree. I just, like, some people, when you start to talk about past lives, they might shut off the computer.
Right. They're like, I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Right. Basically, I went down this road with many lives, many masters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually studied the work at DOPS, which is Division of Perceptual Sciences at the University of Virginia. And I got to tell you, as a scientist, because I've looked at the work of Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker, both MDs, psychiatrists, very, very respected individuals. And the preponderance of the evidence tells me that there is some, in physics terms, forgive me, because it's conservation of information. There's some conservation of information that exceeds, this whatever time frame that you're on this planet.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to deny that evidence. Yet I have asked many people who are scientists, hey, look at this, tell me what you think. And nobody will do it. They won't comment because it's such a hot potato. Yeah, and they're afraid, and that, it really violates a lot of people's intuitions, which is really interesting. Tell me.
That's not intuition, that's ego tuition, though. That's not their intuition, because if they were using their intuition, there would be some spark inside of them that would say, oh, okay, I'm willing to look at that. If they're using their ego tuition, they're just using the fear of judgment, the fear of being ridiculed, in order to say, no, I'm not going to look at this. It doesn't agree with me. Because everybody has a different lens that they're using when they come to Earth. And so to get someone to believe what you believe it's not going to happen if they haven't chosen to, and if they're not willing to.
Yeah, interesting. And, and like 2 billion people on the planet believe it as doctrine, but I think they use it inappropriately, because they say, oh, well, you deserve this, this past, this current karma and all that kind of stuff, which I don't believe in karma. And we'll talk about that another day. But so, all right. Interesting. And the other thing.
Well, can I mention past lives, though? Because what my books talk about is there's no such thing as past lives, only lives, that everything is happening simultaneously in the universe, cosmos, infiniteness. And so sometimes we use words on Earth because it's easier to recognize and understand it. So that's why things trigger people like that. The whole term of past lives is scary to people. And it really is just consciousness, because you are conscious of everything that's going on. And the more that you arise, I guess I would use as a Laura word, the more it affects you. So those unconscious beliefs that you hold on to that come from consciousness, because everything has already happened and everything is happening, can really start to mess you up in your human self. And so that's why it's important to use all three when you're living here on Earth, so that you can get to move beyond those things. It's not necessary for everybody, but it is necessary for some. So if it within you, that intuition spark goes off and says, I feel like there's some karma here. I feel like there's something going on that I need to discover. Go discover it because it's there for you. You said, I don't believe in karma. Well, guess what? Probably because you don't have any karma that you're tied to that you need to go healing. So you're good. Like, you're all good. You're just here evolving and learning at the pace chosen for you, by you, through you.
Well, karma actually, and what you're talking about from a quote unquote scientific perspective is a block universe, that everything is happening now. There's no past, no future.
Right.
And if that's true, then karma doesn't exist, because karma says that there's a past and there's a future, and that you have to make up some kind of amends between those two. And there's that dynamic tension between past and future. So not that I don't believe in cause and effect. What I don't believe is the traditional look at karma. And you're the only person on the planet that I would talk about past lives to in public, just so you know. So that's
the funny thing, because I would talk to anybody anytime about it. Like, I don't have that. I don't have that now because because of what I've done, because of the books I've written and the clients I work with. Like, I'll happily talk about it. And I'm here to say that I still have more to learn. We all still have more to learn. Guess what? Everybody on this planet, when it comes to our true nature of who we are preschoolers and kindergartners. Honestly, there is so much more to learn in this, in these lifetimes about who we all are. And so we're really just scratching the surface of what is possible. If you want to know everything about yourself, then, you want to be an archangel who understands all of that. So just remember that, like, there is so much more. Even as I write my books, I'm always learning. There's always things. Like, something that came up during my writing today was about how worthiness, one of the life-driving themes of everybody on planet Earth, is to learn about worthiness, is to learn your value, is to know that in the eyes of the universe, God, source, whatever you call it, we are all valuable. What happens is, on Earth, is people who have come here to learn about worthiness, they get money, power, fame, and then they decide that they're worthy and nobody else is. And then they will do anything to keep their value, keep their fame, keep their power. And the reason is that it's in their sort of soul contract, or what my books call your life blueprint, that you could lose all of that. You could be famous and you could lose it all. You could be powerful and you could lose it all. You could be famous, or whatever I just said, money. You could have all the money in the world and lose it all. Deep in their knowingness, they know that's possible. So what happens is, because of that subconscious belief that they don't even know, that fear is there. And that fear is what drives them to try to keep everything for themselves. Just like a child, right? The child doesn't realize that, they can have anything that they want. Just the way that the universe works is we can have anything they want. But the minute that another child goes to take their toy or take their crackers or their juice, they're like, no, that's mine, because they're fearful it'll be taken away. And that's exactly what we do when it comes to worthiness. We are so fearful it'll be taken away, we'll do anything to keep it for ourselves. So that, to me, was a great revelation today that just came out, and now it's been 5-6 years of writing books or whatever it's been, and I'm learning more. So I'm always learning. You'll always be learning. Everybody's always going to be learning, and we still don't even have a quarter of the puzzle.
No. And it's in your books and also in Neil Donald Walsh books, is the sponsoring thought. What's the sponsoring thought of you becoming a 100 billionaire? And if it's a negative, if it's tied to something that's negative, it's going to have those consequences. And quite honestly, everybody loses everything eventually on some level. It all comes to an end, which is another thing that's difficult for people to reconcile. And, shame on me, because if you look at philosophically, if past lives, or the conservation of information, we'll call it in technical realms, right? If conservation of information does exist, what it really does speak to experience as a purpose in life, and that explains the suffering that happens in the world. Because what you want to do is you want to experience everything, and you can experience worthiness without feeling unworthy. And the two are just tied together like everything else. And if you want to comment that, please. If not, I want to move on to
Yeah,
some.
that's exactly, and you're right about conversation with God, because there is that talk of, this is an oppositionary planet, and we're here to learn about opposites. So you can't know fat unless you know thin. You can't know big unless you know tall, short, fat, tall. But that doesn't just relate to your journey on Earth. It relates to your entire entity of the soul. So we're always learning about opposites. But once you have discovered what that opposition is, you don't need to learn it anymore. Once you've done it, you're good. Move on. Don't get stuck in it. So it's that whole notion of evolve or repeat, right? Once you evolve through it, bing, bang, boom, you're good. You can move on to the next sort of rung on the ladder.
Yeah. And so I think what he says is keep suffering as a memory to give you context for joy, but don't keep experiencing the suffering, because that's what a lot of people do. They just repeat that because they're not conscious. And we could go on all day. You mentioned free will. I'm going to drop that hot potato. We'll do that another time. I do want to get into something you mentioned before we wrap it up, is conscious beliefs are the roots of our souls, while subconscious thoughts are the demons of the mind. That's counterintuitive. Explain that if you could, and clear that up for people, because I think it's really important.
Okay, so I want to not answer as just Laura, because that won't be the right answer. So I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. And this is what I wish everybody would learn to do, is so that they're not going from that ego response, that they're actually using the trifecta to answer the question. So I'm going to co-create the answer here. And so the answer is that our subconscious mind is where we hold on to all of the thoughts of the collective on Earth, which is all the thoughts and beliefs that we hold about who we are, why we're here, what is possible. And it's been imprinted in us as a human. So from the minute your eyes open to the world as a baby, you decide upon everything based on your eyes. Then your parents start telling you what things are. Then people outside of you, your aunts and your uncles and your friends, everybody starts telling you what you are, rather than going into the inside, which is your soul, which knows consciously exactly who you are. You end up using those subconscious beliefs. And then you start to believe that those subconscious beliefs are the truth for you. So that's why we use our physical eyes to decide everything, because we think that everything that's been implanted through all the thoughts of the collective and our parents and everything is who we are. So the demons of the mind are those subconscious beliefs that are telling you that what I'm saying is bullshit, and what everybody else is saying is the truth. It's somebody watching things on television and deciding that is all true and not what's on the inside. Conscious beliefs that come from the soul are truth. They are the natural thoughts that you think. You don't even realize that instantaneously you know the truth, but you get squashed by your unconscious beliefs. So your ego comes in instantaneously to ruin your day. But if you were to stop, pause for a moment, know who you are, then everything that you truly know and what is truth about who we all are would come to you instantaneously, and you would never, ever, ever have to go seeking. But even saying that, our spiritual counterparts would say, can you just be human too? They want us doing both. Like, they want us to question everything. They want us not believing, because what's the point of being here if we don't discover it for ourselves? That's the whole journey of a soul. It's fun to discover all this over and over again. So there's going to be things that are going to happen. You could be the most spiritual person on the planet, but something will happen to make you not believe. And that's on purpose. That is the purpose of this journey in our little bodies that we're borrowing right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the greatest, most difficult things in wisdom is paradox. You have to give up your life to save your life. The only thing I know is that I know nothing. And for something to be revealed, it has to at first be concealed. And so that's a difficult piece on the journey for not everybody, but for a lot of people on the journey. Wow.
I mean, I want to just say something, because I know, like, I can hear the spirits just here, like, come on, you got to say this now. And I just want to say that the most important thing we can do on this planet, for those of us who are sort of on the awakening journey, the enlightening, who've chosen to come to this time and space that we are right now, where we are on this planet, is to see the world through this eye. Even as you're living your physical life, the more that you can see through your third eye, the more that you can see that what is happening is just the journey of souls, all souls on earth. Everything that everyone is going through is all part of their journey, good or bad, happy or sad. We're all here learning about opposites through the lens that we each currently have. So the more that you can start to see the suffering as Spirit will say purposeful. Laura would be like, let's not say that right now, but Spirit wants to say purposeful. It has a purpose for every single person that's going through it. And when we can offer love, when we can offer assistance, when we can each offer the wisdom that we have inside of us to whoever comes in asking, it's going to help evolve the planet and the consciousness and the soul of the entire planet of Earth.
Yeah. So if I could make an observation, and please spank this down if it's not accurate. There's three basic journeys to enlightenment. One is that of deprivation, the monk who meditates for years, and you know, a lot of people feel like Jesus was 40 days in the desert, 39 days, whatever. There's the journey of the intellect, and that's probably the journey I'm on. And I dabble in both. You know, I fast sometimes. And then there's the journey you're on. And again, I don't want to classify you in any ways, like the journey of love. And I am so jealous of the people who are on that journey of love, because it seems so much easier. Like it just seems like, oh my God, like when I used to have
oh my God, it is not easy. It is not easy at all. This journey has been, if you read my books, that like all 4 of my books, you will see that my journey has been a torrential downpour, followed by a hurricane, followed by an earthquake, followed by some sunshine and rainbows, followed by another earthquake. Like, it is the journey that we're all going to take is going to be the difficult one. And you said it right, because first you have to, conceive in order to, what was your phrase?
Something has to be concealed before it's revealed.
So exactly. So all of those concealed thoughts are what we're here to heal. And the journey to belief is what we're all on here right now. And it is definitely difficult. So somebody is a monk who, I'm going to say, this is Laura's observation now, someone who is a monk to me is somebody who is just a more highly evolved soul who has come here knowing and understanding that we don't need things. All the material things that we think we need in life are simply our ego telling us we need wonderful things. A monk is more highly evolved and just says, like, I don't need to do that. And so their whole journey is to learn through meditation who they are. And that's their journey. Somebody like you who's got that scientific mind, who wants the research, like, and has that intellect, your journey is, I am going to seek, I'm going to look, I need to uncover every stone. Like, I have to figure it out. I have to find it out. But I have to tell you, I feel most people are on my journey, the journey of discovery, which is quite an arduous one. It is, you know, the roller coaster journey. So when people read my books, I keep some of the most embarrassing, ridiculous things about my life, questions, repetitive, over and over, bashing you over the head. Why do you not get this in there? For that very reason, is that for most people, it will be the journey. And so that's why I don't get upset, and neither should you, when people don't believe, understand, recognize, think we're woo-woo, think we're crazy, think consciousness is, you know, not happening, whatever it is that they think. It's all part of their process. So I'm good with it. That's why, like, you know, when you said in the beginning that, you know, you were going to play devil's advocate, I was like, I'm good. Nothing shakes me anymore. Nothing will shake me.
I knew that.
Because I know my truth. I know who I am. I know why we're here. I believe, even though my life doesn't always work the way I expect it to, even though Spirit is always telling me how to make it work, probably because I don't listen and don't do the things that Spirit says. But I'm so strong in my belief of who we are. But I would also say that somebody who is so strong in their faith of what they believe who and what God is, that's their journey. And I'm good with that. Like, I'm good. So somebody else can stand in their faith. You know, if you put me and Joel Osteen against each other, it'll be an interesting conversation. That's for sure. Because he's so strong in his faith, and I'm so strong in my belief, based on a book that I wrote, rather than a book that was written thousands and thousands of years ago with different lots of different authors who, by the way, were tapping into their love consciousness. Anything coming from love that's in spiritual books is truth. Anything that we've written, and there's many things, especially in the Bible, that are exactly what is in Conversations with God, exactly what are in other books. Ask and ye shall receive. Absolutely. That's pretty much it. You ask for something with belief, that's the missing link. Right. You would receive it. But most of us don't believe. So we go, ask and ye shall receive. Oh, God's not helping me because I didn't get what I wanted. But you have that missing little connector, and that is belief. Belief is what creates everything. When you believe, you will receive.
Yeah. Pray, believe me, you have received it and it will be yours. If you believe this mountain, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but who really believes that? That's really it. Like, you say that, but it's like the journey to belief is a tough one. It's really, truly hard to believe because of the evidence because we use our physical eyes.
Yeah. And that's why the scientific journey is compelling to me, because I can manage these inconsistencies. I feel like I can. And I feel like this is the toughest journey, even though, because like the grass is greener because you get to love people and care about them, and you get to love yourself. And like that to me just seems so much easier and more compelling. But as I think you've pointed out, it's different for everyone. And I just feel like I get lost in my thoughts, and what am I wasting my time? What am I doing? Like, what am I thinking? What do I have to, and so I think every journey is, and then 40 years of meditating on a hill, I'm sure it can't be easy either. So it's, so anyway.
Right. Yep.
So no, I think the takeaway is no journey is easy, and they're filled with challenges. And so that was kind of maybe a puerile view of your journey compared to mine. So I stand.
Well, it's like, Wayne Dyer says, if you think of it like the ocean and there's individual waves, well, every wave is having a different experience of what they're going through, but we're all still part of the same ocean.
Yeah. So I stand corrected on that one. All right. One last thing. I took a quote from your book, and I think this is something that everybody deals with. And here it is. If I listen to the voices in my head telling me I am too old, too fat, too useless in the world, I would be. Well, exactly where I was, because I did. And that's hard to imagine especially after this conversation, looking at you, talking to you, that you were in that place where so many people are. As a closing comment, just talk to me about that.
Well, as I said, one of our life blueprints, life driving themes we're all facing is worthiness on this planet. Every one of us is still wondering if we're worthy of the love of the universe. Are we worthy as a person? And I think that social media has been our one of the worst things, one of the best things in sort of that connects us, but also one of the worst things that disconnects us from ourself, disconnects us from love. And it's causing more mental illness than we've ever seen before, because we're comparing ourselves to one another. So I would say, to be honest, I think my worthiness issues did start with when I first probably started working at Access Hollywood. Even though I was able to gain some of the things I really wanted to create, I was stopping myself because I was in comparison mode and seeing, this person's prettier than me, and that one's skinnier than me, and that one's fatter than me. And I think that's very common. I think we're all our own worst critics, and I was my own worst critic. And then when social media came around, it became even worse for me. And so I still, even to this day, I still struggle with, all of those things that I still struggle with. But now I do know how to work with it. I know that I have to work on those subconscious hidden demons that want to keep me stuck. And I do recognize and own my worthiness. And I think, one of my biggest issues was aging. I've always struggled with aging. Like, aging to me is and so, I'm trying to be a vampire where I'm not aging. And that comes back to, worthiness, and human vanity is a very strong tie to some of our problems on earth as well. So to me, all of those things, Stephen, are all of our earthly issues and those ego issues that we all face in this life. And you just have to continually work on that. It's a daily process to work, to see yourself as beautiful, to see yourself as worthy, to love yourself. It really goes back to that age-old thing, it's self-love. So self-love is fine if you think of it in a human version of it. But if you think of self-love in the mind, body, soul trifecta, It's truly knowing who you are, loving yourself exactly as you are, loving every ounce of all the things that you've gone through, every part of your journey, good and bad. And when you find the love within, you stop looking for outside addictions. So what are outside addictions? Drugs, alcohol, social media, food, anything that you think is going to give you that instantaneous high, but then ultimately it's not. I mean, it goes away. So you're always seeking. It's why we're always seeking relationships. It's always why we're always seeking food. We're still looking for something to make us feel worthy, to make us feel loved. And so for me, I've definitely moved beyond a lot of that, but there's still issues I deal with, and I will continue to deal with my entire life, but I will deal with them the way that I know how, which is to always use my mind, body, soul trifecta.
Yeah. You know, and as I read your books and read your articles, you see in this personal development world, if you want to go wisdom world, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people promote themselves as these perfect, and you never do that. You always bring it down to, hey, I am a human being. And that's what I love about you.
Oh, when you read my 4th book, oh my God, you will see all of the tortures that I've been through and all of the angers and upsets and frustrations, not only with my personal world, but the world that we're currently living in. Like, I put it all out there. And I feel like one of the reasons I do what I do, and I am so authentic, and maybe that was one of my life driving themes, was to be authentic, is because I do see that. And I don't want to judge, because everyone's doing their thing and what they're meant to be learning and putting out into the world. But for me, I just know that I'm here to let people know that it's not as easy to manifest as people say, because the way you read something and interpret it at the level that you currently are and the lens that you currently have is going to probably lead you to not manifesting it. So if you really want to create a better life, you have to know that there are things that are going on deep in the conscious, unconscious, and conscious part of you that needs to be healed, that needs to be moved to beyond. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And that doesn't mean that people can't manifest. I mean, they can, because if you believe, you'll be able to do it. But it comes back to, it's the journey. It's the journey of being a better version of you every single time you come into a body. You want to be a better version. Is a better version of you because you got a lot of money and bought a house and had 5 cars? Or is a better version of you somebody who can offer wisdom and kindness and love and compassion to everyone and everything? That's the better version of the soul that we're all trying to achieve.
Well, I have so many other things I want to discuss, but we need to leave it there, because that was a beautiful ending to a beautiful interview. We're going to have ways to reach out to you. I highly recommend Wake Up Well, which is your TV show, your meditation training. You have multiple things, off ways to help people. And I know a lot of people really need what you're doing and are really tapping into what you're doing right now. And it's really, we're just really honored and happy to have you work with us. And we're always here for you. And I know the same. So it's really been a pleasure.
I appreciate it. And I love that you guys are on this journey and willingly sharing what in 10, 20, 30 years will become a little bit more mainstream than it's even starting to be now.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Okay, this is Dr. Stephen Cangiano. This has been a wonderful interview with Laura Saltman, signing off from Humanity Upgrade Relationship Development. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again. Thank you.